Whenever you have a moment, Michelle Heather is in the waiting room as well.
Michelle, any reason we can't call this meeting to order?
Eric, everything's ready. You can go forward.
Okay, then let's call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock on Tuesday, September 28th. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and face your nearest flag and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America and to
the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Michelle, can we have a roll call?
Chairman Leach,
Here.
Vice Chairman Lind,
Here.
Commissioner Lothorpe, he's present. Commissioner Bakta,
Here.
Commissioner Truxillo,
Here.
Commissioner Liu,
Present.
Commissioner Gaitis.
Here.
Can we just confirm that Bob can hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Super. Then let's move on to item 4 in the agenda, which is public comment. And I'll read the notice to the public. This time is set aside to receive public comment on matters not calendared on the agenda. So we have one item on the agenda tonight, and there'll be a separate public hearing for that. So if your comments refer to that, please wait and make your comments at that time. This is for items not on the agenda. When recognized by the chair, it's requested that you please state your name and address for the record, and also please to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Under California law, the Planning Commission is prohibited from generally discussing or taking action on items not included in the agenda. However, the Planning Commission may briefly respond to comments or questions from members of the public. Therefore, the Planning Commission will listen to all public comment, but will not generally discuss the matter or take any action on it. So with that, we will open the public comment. And for all of you attending via Zoom, if you do wish to make a comment at this time, just use the raise hand feature on Zoom, and we'll call on you and promote you so you can speak.
I do not have anyone raising their hand, Eric.
Okay. Then I move that we close the public comment period. Can I have a second?
I second that.
Okay.
I'll take a vote.
Yep.
Chairman Leach,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Lind,
Yes.
Are you unmuted?
Heather, can you unmute? Thank
Yes.
you. Commissioner Lothorpe,
Yes.
Commissioner Bakta,
Yes.
Commissioner Truxillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Liu,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaitis.
Yes.
Motion approved to close the public hearing.
Okay, great. Then we'll move on to approval of minutes. And we have two sets of minutes to approve tonight. The minutes from the Planning Commission meeting held on July 27th and the Planning Commission meeting held on August 24th. Do we have any discussion of those minutes?
I have a quick possible typo to correct for the meeting minutes for the 24th, page 2. I believe it was citizen Fran Hunt and not Fran Mason, and that she lives on Pine Street.
Elaine, was that Fran Hunt or Fran Mason?
That was Fran Hunt. That's correct.
Hunt?
Yes.
Okay, I will make that change. Thank you.
Michelle, I had another comment on those minutes.
Okay,
And it was, my name was misspelled, but that's not relevant. Let's see, on page 4, we had a brief discussion about the various parties in escrow on this property, and I thought the conclusion was that we had two parties in escrow on the same lot, 168 Line Street. But on page 4, it says that Hakeem explained that his client is the only person in escrow on the property. I believe that's incorrect, for what it's worth.
Elaine, do you want to explain?
I think we could, we could go back and listen to the recording, but I think there were two parties in escrow, and it's possible that at the time that this was considered by the Planning Commission, there was only one.
I also thought there was 2 offers presented, but only one can be in escrow.
That's
The,
my understanding as
yeah,
well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
that might
other
be the
one
case.
just put an offer in, but was not accepted.
Okay, well, we did have some discussion about that because we were told that they were both in escrow, and both parties confirmed that they were in escrow with the Chacon Estate. And I asked explicitly at that meeting if that was even possible, and we were told that it was. So
Wow.
anyway,
We will go back and listen to the recording.
Yeah,
and
I'll
confirm
go
that.
back. I'll go back and listen. Thank you.
okay. Okay, shall we we'll have 2 separate votes to approve the minutes? Or,
You can do them as one.
okay,
Are there any other comments on the second set of minutes?
yeah, I had one minor comment on the 27th. And that's that there was one more misspelling of my name, but Lorenzo Tavar, his name was misspelled multiple times across page 4, for what that's worth. So I believe
And page
it's,
6.
and also page 6. So it's Tovar,
Lorenzo's
and in
name.
many
Okay,
places
I
it
will
was
watch.
spelled
I'll
Tabor.
watch for Lorenzo's and make those adjustments.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
and that was the only thing I found.
Okay.
Okay, can we, let's see, I move that we approve the minutes from the meeting on the 27th of July and also the meeting of August 24th. Michelle, sorry, can we second it? Can we get a
I
second?
have a question. I was absent for the July 27 and I was present for August 24. So how I should vote? Because I don't know actually what happened in 27.
You can still approve them just by reading them that there were no errors in the, or that you're approving the corrections that were noted.
Is that okay with Mr. Collins, our attorney? Thank you, sir. Got to follow the law.
Thank you, Harry.
You're welcome.
Did we have a second?
Well, I do.
Thank you, Harry. Chairman Leach,
Yes,
Vice Chairman Lynn,
Yes.
Commissioner Lothrop,
Yes.
Commissioner Bakta,
Yes.
Commissioner Truxillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Liu,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaitis.
Yes.
Minutes of the Planning Commission meetings held on July 27th and August 24th, 2021, approved with the corrections noted.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Then with that, let's move on to our first agenda item, our new agenda item on the agenda tonight, and we'll have the public hearing for conditional use permit 162 Grove Street. And Elaine, would you like to introduce this item?
Yes, it'd be my pleasure, Chairman Leach. Thank you. Just really quick, I want to make sure everyone can hear me. I've been having a couple of static issues on my side. Okay, very good. Thank you. As introduced, this item is a request for a conditional use permit for the property at 162 Grove Street. Specifically, the application is submitted by United Signs on behalf of Dollar Tree, requesting a conditional use permit to waive the allowed signage maximum of 80 square feet to accommodate 2 building signs totaling 134 square feet for the proposed Dollar Tree. So that would be 2 signs, each would be 67 square feet. One would be on the Grove Street facade and the other would be on the facade facing Main Street. It was the opinion of the applicant that it would be the most aesthetic way of identifying the business. They're building a new corner at where the alley is facing Main Street and Grove Street, and the 2 signs would then emphasize that corner. The City of Bishop general plan encourages retail sales, lodging, and other commercial uses within the general commercial land use area. This has a designation of general commercial under the land use element of the general plan. That general plan also supports that Bishop is the economic and retail hub of the Eastern Sierra and promotes uses that stimulate new and existing businesses in Bishop. The property is zoned general commercial and retail, or C1, and the proposed use is consistent with the zoning. The signage falls under Municipal Code Section 17.76.110, general regulations related to commercial signage. That limits the accumulation of all signage on a business to 80 square feet, but it provides that the Planning Commission may grant a conditional use permit exceeding the 80 square feet maximum. Staff finds that the proposal is consistent with the goals of the general plan related to general commercial, and that is otherwise consistent with the zoning code as well. At this time, the staff would request that the Planning Commission hold the public hearing and approve the request for a conditional use permit to allow for up to and not more than 134 square feet total signage in association with a Dollar Tree located at 162 Grove Street. Concludes my verbal report. I am happy to take questions you have. I'm also available to put the renderings up on my screen if anyone is interested in seeing them for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. And just a reminder that we're going to hold a public hearing. So if commissioners have any quick clarifications right now, feel free to ask, but we'll have time for a more in-depth discussion after the public hearing is closed. So are there any comments before we open the public hearing? Okay, then let's open the public hearing. And once again, for anyone attending the meeting who would like to make a public comment, just raise your hand and you'll be called on. And I do believe that David Randolph is with us, who is the signee of the letter that was presented to the Planning Commission on behalf of the owner. If David, you would like to make any clarifications, you are also welcome to do that at this time.
Okay. I don't have a lot to say. I want to thank Elaine for working with us on this project and helping us through this process. And Obviously, if we didn't have two frontages, we wouldn't even be here because we'd be under 80 square feet. And so basically at that, open it to any questions that any of you might have.
Okay. Do we have any other public comments before we go on?
I don't show anyone else attending, Eric.
Okay. Keith, can we close the public hearing, but leave David Randolph on the line in case we have questions while we're having our discussion? Is that reasonable to do?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay, then if there are no other comments at this time, I would move that we do precisely that. Close the public hearing and then proceed to commission discussion. Do we have a second?
I don't. Well, everybody does.
Michelle, could you take a vote?
Chairman Leach,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Lynn,
Yes.
Commissioner Lothrop, Commissioner Lothrop, could you unmute? I see him saying yes. Commissioner Bakta,
Yes.
Commissioner Truxillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Liu,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaitis.
Yes.
Motion approved to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Michelle. So at this time, we're officially moving on to item 7, new business, conditional use permit, 162 Grove Street. And Elaine, anything else you'd like to add before we move on to commission discussion?
Yes, I would also like to add to my staff report that these types of requests are typical for corporate businesses that have located in Bishop before.
Okay, thanks. I had a question, which was just how does the requested signage compare to the signage for the other dollar store in town? Do we know what square footage that is currently using?
I don't know that square footage off of the top of my head, but it was not necessary for them to get a conditional use permit. And as Mr. Randolph said, that's possible, likely because they only have one street frontage.
Any discussion from commissioners? Heather?
I had that same question, so thank you for clarifying. And then I wish there was a little bit more clarification. I'm sorry, my dog just ran in. And my question is, we're on the cusp of this downtown Bishop specific plan and mixed use overlay project. Where does this fit into that? Is it similar to what we're looking at when we've talked about all of our previous architectural design types of things? Because I have some serious concerns in regards to the color and the size.
Yeah, so I have to admit that I received the administrative draft of the specific plan after processing the application for this signage application. And the previous drafts that we look at did not have specificity on things like square footage and very specific guidance about how we would be developing that. So unfortunately, I do not have a very good answer about how this would be processed under the future signage ordinance. That being said, that is also the future signage ordinance, and we do need to consider the application under the existing ordinance. With relationship to the colors, that largely sort of falls into the same category that there will be recommended palettes for the design guidelines that will be in the future ordinance, but that isn't adopted at this time. but I am not entirely sure how that specific plan will deal with more colors associated with corporate branding, like, things like McDonald's or Orco that have very specific logos. Obviously, the color palettes proposed by Dollar Tree are consistent with their corporate marketing and branding.
Thanks both for the question and for the clarification. I think many of us had similar questions. Are there other comments? Tricia, did you want to say something?
Out of curiosity, and I'll keep going back to the XXX vinyl sign that's on Grove Street up from Maine. Is there anything in place that say the dollar store doesn't succeed in that location? Is there anything in place that would require the applicant or the operator to bring the architectural pop out and facade or back to a basic standard with no identifying markers, no signs?
There is nothing in place in the existing signage ordinance for that. In the future, I believe that the signage ordinance we intend to adopt will have provisions for remediating empty sign cabinets and removal of signs for businesses that are no longer in place.
And so Elaine, that would be retroactive. That's not something that the business would have to agree to when they start up.
That's true. And I have seen in other cities that they have enacted like amortizations schedules to come into compliance. I think that and I might be speaking slightly out of turn, but I think that our nuisance ordinance that we passed also might include provisions that if a business is no longer there, they need to take the signage out. At any rate, even though that is retroactive, it is signage ordinance that should be in place at some point in the future to replace the one that is there currently. Even if it's retroactive, that does not necessarily mean that empty sign cabinets would be grandfathered in under that ordinance.
Could a condition of the approval include the remediation of the existing sign that would be approved? And
yes, we could include that as a condition of approval. Would want to confer with Mr. Collins about enforcement.
Well, I have another comment. I'm very uncomfortable with approving something like, months or days away from this huge project that the city, yourself, everybody has spent, the public, our community, comments and meetings and workshops to try and get this done. And now we're gonna plop down this great big Dollar Tree sign right in the middle of it. It's given me some serious heartburn. Is there any way to make the applicant have to comply with what is going to come out of the downtown specific plan moving forward?
Because it's not a adopted ordinance at this time, I do not think that we can require the applicant to comply with that proposed ordinance.
So I have a comment on that then.
Go ahead, Sam.
So when does this new ordinance go into effect? Can we have a date or close to date or rough idea?
No. The plan will be finalized in late December or January. And staff has not yet determined how it will be codified. Because it also includes a pretty significant zoning change, we are concurrently doing CEQA analysis, and the council will not be able to adopt the zoning changes until the CEQA analysis is complete, which will be sometime in the spring of 2022. There is some possibility that things like a signage ordinance could be considered and adopted prior. At any rate, I do not think that this application can be considered under that future ordinance.
No, my argument to that point would be, we could consider tabling this the situation until after the ordinance with regards to signage is complete. Is that correct?
Sure.
Okay.
It,
I'm only offering an option. I'm not saying we have to do it or we're going to do it. I'm just asking, we can table this until we're ready to discuss it with the new ordinance in place.
Can I ask as a follow-on question, what is the time scale for development of this property? Maybe Mr. Randolph can answer that.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
And I'll address 2 points. One is our company alone, we do about 100 Dollar Tree projects a year. And that also includes any stores that they might close, which is extremely rare. But to address your question about leaving the sign on the building, Dollar Tree never does that. If they're going to close a store, which they usually do when they relocate to a nearby location, the signs come down immediately upon closing. And so unless all 14,000 Dollar Trees closed all at once for some reason, I can't imagine the sign staying on the building. To address the other issue, I don't have in front of me the schedule for this store, but typically by the time we get involved, the store will be open within 6 to 8 weeks.
Right. I have had conversations with the developer. It's my understanding that he intends to have the store open in November.
About right.
Okay. All right. So it seems unreasonable to me to make this project go without signage until possibly spring of next year, given that they're.
Agreed. Then I have one more question.
Yeah.
With regard to the signage that we're talking about for Dollar Tree, how consistent is it with other Dollar Tree stores? Are we talking about a very normal, an abnormal? What are we talking about? And this question is for Mr. Randolph.
It's actually abnormal. The letter shape, color, layout is typical of pretty much all 14,000 Dollar Trees in the world. But the prototypical letter size is 36 inches. We're at 30 inches here. And so we're actually smaller than normal. And I would like to point out, and I hope you all agree, I don't know if you will, that they're also spending a fair amount of time, energy, and money to improve the look of this building by building this corner facade. And so it will take away the sort of, will interrupt, I should say, the long stretch of metal standing seam roof and give it a little bit of variation rather than just, standing seam roof wrapping around the building. But I realize that's subjective, so.
Sorry, go ahead, Elaine.
Thank you, Chairman Leach. I'd also offer for the commission's consideration that the applicant could reduce the size of the signage, which might be disproportionate to the scale of the building, or remove one of the signs from the proposal, or irrespective of our specific plan and opinions on the color. It would not need to get planning commission approval if it met that 80 square foot standard.
Yeah. Thank you, Elaine. I was also going to make that point. I had two concerns. It seems like a reasonable request given the size of the store, given the size of other signage for comparable storefronts. But I'm also concerned about architectural standards and signage standards and the specific plan, that we've been crafting for a long time, and how this is going to mesh with that. I guess, and this is also a question for David. My concerns are not so much the size of the sign, but the look and materials of the sign. And I feel like I'm not just speaking for myself when I say that. I think we're trending in a direction where I think as a town, we're going for more sort of, visual aesthetics. We're moving away from, self-lit polycarbonate signs where possible, or at least we'd like to. I know I'd like to. So I have aesthetic concerns about having another, bright blinking light on Main Street that you'll excuse me, Mr. Randolph, like that can look cheap, right? If done, if not done really well. And my other concern is goes towards dark skies. And another initiative that we have been trying to make some motion on in Bishop is reducing light pollution, kind of throughout the city. And I'm a little concerned about having yet another sign that's illuminated from within with no shielding, just beaming out into the night, and that being the look and feel of Bishop as you walk down Main Street. So if there were a question in there, it would be, Mr. Randolph, are there options for other signage materials? And, other, like, for example, could you make a sign out of wood? Could it be illuminated from the outside? Could it be made more tailored to a specific look and feel for a community?
There's a lot to address sort of all at once, but if I can touch on a few things. Let me touch on wood first. Wood, of the various materials that we use in the sign industry, and we actually use a lot of different materials, wood is the absolute worst. And one of the reasons I say that is, take any piece of wood, go sit in the middle of a parking lot someplace and walk away from it for 3 or 4 years and see what's there when you come back. Wood just does not hold up well unless it's, as you know from probably maintaining your own homes and fences, how badly wood gets beaten up and weathered, warping, all kinds of bad things. I have clients that come to me and say, "Oh, I want a wood sign." No, you don't. If you're planning on being in business more than 2 or 3 years.
Well, sorry to interrupt, but my essential point was, other materials. Wood is just wood is just one example.
Yeah. As far as other materials, it's really a challenge. Part of it is, this is Dollar Tree's image. Dollar Tree does no advertising outside of their signs on their buildings. That's literally the only advertising that they do. So it's critically important for their marketing efforts to have a sign that's visible. The one thing I will say about the green is, in our industry, we use all kinds of different colors, and green is actually one of the recessive colors when it comes to the amount of light that it throws out in the world, as opposed to white or red, although red, actually, believe it or not, tends to be also on that recessive side. And it's the brighter whites, yellows, those kind of colors that really, as far as add to light pollution, more than a green or red or a blue. And so, other than that, the only time for pretty much any of my retail clients that I use another material is other than an internally illuminated acrylic letter. And this is a far cry, I think you'll all admit, from the old days of cabinet signs with white backgrounds and all that. But the only time I use any other material is literally when it's mandated by code. Because it just is so important to who Dollar Tree is, how they market, etc. Now, I believe, and I may be speaking out of turn, that they do turn their sign off when they close at night. They don't leave it on all night. And so, and part of it is, and part of the reason they do that, by the way, is they're Dollar Tree. And we've been reminded many times that when you sell everything for $1, you look for every savings you can find. And so, yeah, they don't turn their signs on until essentially they have to, and at dusk or dark, and they turn them off, I believe, as soon as they close.
Okay, thank you. And just a follow-on question, and I think you answered it, but the only part of the sign that would be illuminated are the green letters. There's no illuminated background behind them.
There's no illuminated background. There's no side illumination of any kind. There's no light bouncing off the building. It's just those letters. In fact, I wouldn't say we've done scientific studies, but we've had some communities where we've done sort of semi-scientific, I'm blanking on the word, I apologize. The senior moment stuff really stinks. But when you spotlight a sign, you're using a white light or spot or floodlight sign, you're lighting up the whole building. Some of that light clearly misses the building, or if it's a monument sign, misses the monument and, you know, jets off into space. So spot or floodlit signs aren't necessarily better for light pollution than internally illuminated signs.
Okay, thank you. Other comments from commissioners? Hank, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I had a real quick question. So if they're going to turn the light off when they close, I don't know if anybody knows this. What is the proposed closing time?
I have no idea, sorry.
I believe from the previous application, it was 10 p.m.
Thank you.
So it's fairly late. It wouldn't be on at midnight. Okay, other comments from commissioners? Okay, well, I mean, I guess my feeling is that you know, it's not an unreasonable request. It's in line with the signage for these types of stores and for other stores in town. The commission, as you've heard, has a number of options. Whatever the option we choose, I would advocate that we do include some language to require that the signs be removed if the business were to go, despite verbal promises, which I trust, but it's nice to have that in writing.
And could it be that the surface be brought back to some plain state, not just wiring hanging out or whatever, you know, painted, patched?
I feel like it's safe to say we could add that language. Keith, do you have a comment?
No, that language is legally permissible, for sure.
And to that point, it's just so Mr. Randolph understands, he mentioned that, yeah, it seems unlikely that we might lose all Dollar Tree stores at one time, except guess what? We lost all Kmart stores at one time, and there's still a mess over there at Kmart. So I think that's a very important part of the language.
I have no problem with it.
Okay. Another option, as you've heard, of course, we could, you know, we could simply deny the request, in which case, you know, they can certainly put up a sign fronting Main Street and maybe lose the sign on Grove Street. That's another option. Or they could reduce the size of both signs. David, just out of curiosity, if you know, a reduction in size were on offer, is that something that would be, you know, antithetical to Dollar Tree's brand, or is that something that is done with other Dollar Tree stores?
Well, it's certainly been done with other Dollar Tree stores because it's being done here. You know, our nationwide, and we don't do them nationwide, but you know, all sign guidelines are 36 inches, 36 inches, 36 inches, unless there's some extenuating circumstance. And here, there was an extenuating circumstance, which actually wasn't your code, it was the building itself. The code just made it more of an extenuating circumstance. So we've already reduced from 36 inch to 30 inch in, you know, the corporate people that I'm going to report to's eyes. Anything down from there is much smaller than average. And so, yeah, I don't know what their position would be if, for example, you denied it and I had to go back and say, okay, we need to redesign. What do you want to do? You know, my guesstimate is, and it wouldn't look very good, that we'd do a larger sign facing one way and a smaller sign facing the other. You know, now you'd have an unbalanced facade, but I don't know. You know, if we had to stick within code, you know, we haven't actually discussed that yet. We were hoping not to.
Okay, thank you. Heather, did you want to say something?
Yeah, 36 inches is the lettering size though, not the, you haven't reduced the sign size. So, so you could still use 36-inch lettering on a 40-foot sign in the front and a 40-foot sign in the back.
No.
And have plenty of signage, is that right? It's a total of
No.
80. right?
Yeah, that's unfortunately that doesn't work that way. Their logo type, their letter type is a registered trademark. And so every inch we reduce in height, we reduce, I think it's like an 11-to-1 ratio. We reduce 11 inches in length. So it's essentially a geometric progression. So the sign gets radically shorter in length for every inch you drop in height. And that proportion does not change. Part of the reason it does not change is the old Kleenex story of, every tissue these days is called a Kleenex because Kleenex didn't defend their brand. And so to defend a registered trademark, you have to use it and defend it. So for example, there are companies that come out and open stores called Dollar World, and they use a green letter that looks amazingly like Dollar Tree's letter. And Dollar Tree has to vigorously pursue having that changed or they lose their trademark. So, so we have to do it proportionally.
Okay.
Excuse my dog barking in the background, I apologize.
That's okay. And I want to just clarify with Elaine and everybody. So what we're talking about is a total of 144 in the front and 70 on the side.
No, I think it's 134 total. It's 67 per sign.
Okay,
That's correct.
67 per sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not convinced. Just
Okay. Thank you, Heather. And of course, if we've laid out several options, so we can make a motion to pursue any of those options, and I invite commissioners to do so. And once we have a concrete motion, please reflect your feelings with your vote. That's what we're here for. But before we make a motion, is there any more discussion? Elaine.
Thank you, Chairman Leach. If it helps to provide additional information, I did look at the signage guidelines during discussion briefly for the new specific plan. And the application, the signage guidelines would allow for an interior lit sign. It allows for brightly colored letters. It allows for bright colors for lettering. And I think that would be in particular applied to corporate situations. It maintains the 80 square foot total accumulation. And there would be the same opportunity for an applicant to apply for a conditional use permit through the Planning Commission, similar to as what is happening this evening. The one place where there would be some deviation is, as Chairman Leach had asked, with regards to materials. But I think that's, if anything, a place, based on the discussion this evening, a place where I would request a point of clarification on how one would build an interior illuminated sign, which is otherwise allowed by the future design guidelines.
Okay, thank you, Elaine. Any other comments?
Just one clarification there. So the future guidelines, is there a difference in the sizing requirements there, or is that consistent with what we have now?
It allows a total accumulation of 80 square feet.
Okay.
With an opportunity to request a conditional use permit from the Planning Commission.
Okay. Then I would make a motion to approve the conditional use permit for the 134 square feet with the addition of language to require the business owner to remove the signage and restore the facade to a neutral state should the business vacate the premises. Do I have a second for that motion?
Before I second that, I just want to make a quick comment because I'm just aware that signage is important in this community. I'm also aware that we have a new code coming into place, and I'm aware that people will get in under the wire. So this is a perfect example of, yeah, okay, he's gonna get in under the wire. We've had signage issues and concerns in the past. This, in my mind, is something that would be acceptable even under the new code. It's really not that egregious. So I'm going to second this motion, but I just want it to be noticed that we are looking for an image of downtown Bishop that incorporates the commercialism that exists, as well as having an environment which we can be proud of. So I wanted to say, the way I've understood the sign, it doesn't sound too grotesque. Seems reasonable. It's off Main Street. I just want to make all those comments clear as I second this motion.
I agree with you, Hank. Thank you for those comments. And, you know, part of my consideration too is that although this property is set back, you know, it's not right on Main Street and the rest of the commercial zone. It's also not tucked into a residential area, really. It's got, you know, other commercial areas abutting it on sort of all sides. So that's part of my consideration too. It seems like a reasonable request. The signage doesn't seem egregious. And it's not in an area where I feel like it's going to directly impact, you know, some family trying to live across the street and looking out their living room window at a glowing green sign.
Agreed.
Can I add or just clarify that there, if this is approved tonight, there is no chance for a podium or whatever, you know, a lit stand to go in?
Any additional signage that Dollar Tree would request would come back for additional planning commission approval.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, because they would have already exceeded their allowance. Okay, then I think we have a motion and we have a second. Do we need to restate the motion or is it clear? Okay. Michelle, can we have a vote?
Chairman Leach,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Lynn,
No.
Commissioner Lothorpe,
Yes.
Commissioner Bakta,
Yes.
Commissioner Truxillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Liu,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaitis,
Yes.
motion approved for the request for a conditional use permit to allow for up to and not more than 134 square feet total signage in association with the Dollar Tree that is described herein and illustrated in attachment A, with the additional language that signs to be removed and to restore the facade of the building if the business closes.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Then let's move on to item 8, staff and commission reports.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Randolph. Staff, would you like to take over?
Good evening again, commissioners. 2 items this evening. The first is we did receive the administrative draft of the downtown Bishop plan, specific plan and mixed use overlay. And that has been sent to you for your review and comment directly back to me. The administrative comments on the administrative draft need to be back to the consultants on October 15th. Following that, there will be another opportunity for public input once they've incorporated all of our comments on the administrative draft in November, and then presentation to your planning commission sometime in December on the final draft. As I said earlier this evening, we are running a CEQA process concurrent to development of the specific plan, so it will not be considered for full adoption until the CEQA process has been finished and certified. I also sent you information earlier in the week regarding Governor Newsom's extension of, I'm trying to think of the right way to phrase this, the modifications to the Brown Act to allow for boards and commissions to continue to meet remotely, known as AB 361. There are very particular circumstances that need to be established to allow for those boards and commissions to continue to meet remotely. And the Bishop City Council will be providing the direction on how we will proceed in the city of Bishop on that. That concludes all the items I have to update you on this evening. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine, and thanks for forwarding the draft. And commissioners, please do your best to go through it and provide feedback before October 15th. Are there, I had one comment, but first, are there any questions on what Elaine just reported? Okay. The only thing I wanted to say was that while I was reading the minutes from the July meeting, I was reminded that Commissioner Truxillo had asked that we have a future agenda item, maybe, and get a presentation about housing opportunities within Inyo County. And it'd be nice if that doesn't fall off everyone's radar.
Thank you, Chairman Leach, for the reminder. I was also reminded in reading those minutes that that request had been made. After the July meeting, I reached out to my counterpart at Inyo County. She said she would be happy to provide that presentation. And I know that she had asked that maybe that was something we can agendize a little bit later in the fall. I will see if she's available potentially for an October meeting if we have one agendized to provide a presentation then. Thank you.
Okay, great. Any other reports from staff or commissioners? Okay, then we will move on to adjournment. I always forget, do we need a motion to adjourn? Nope. Okay. If there's nothing else, then let's adjourn this meeting at 6:51 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you. Have a
Thanks,
nice
everyone.
evening.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.